Then, good morning from my side. I'm Veronica. Right now, I'm actually in Dublin. So for us, it's 9:30 in the morning. Um, I'm originally from Romania. Just to be honest, I have been invited today to speak a little bit more about youth participation. Of course, empowerment through the AI, but then we can see how many other ways we can do it. Just a few words about myself. It's not that important. I think you have received somewhere a new presentation. I have started my journey in the youth sector, I dare say at the European level, about 17 years ago. I've been working with youth movement. I have founded several nonprofits working both with the youth inclusion and digital inclusion. But the past 8 years in specific have been really centered around digital transformations, either from contributions to policy making, literacy initiatives, and research more and more. So basically, what I'm also going to share with you today is very much connected to the research we have done in Europe and beyond in various contexts. And I think it's also important to know the context in which I work because I'm a huge digital enthusiast. I have to say, you tell me now when any kind of technology is available, I would be more than happy to try it. But I really apply this, what I call critical digital lens, because in many ways, technology has happened to us. And the feeling is, and actually my understanding is that we are just starting to use it in a meaningful way, in a purposeful way. And this is also the key for our discussion today. But let's already dive a little bit into this topic of youth participation and artificial intelligence. Because from the very beginning, I think there are two angles on how we can address it. On the one hand, we can speak about AI as an enabler for youth participation. And then we can also look on how young people participate to shape the AI technology. So it's not just AI helping, but also young people helping their turn. So in this case, it's about youth agency in shaping AI technologies and policies. And of course, spoiler alert, there are both opportunities and challenges. AI as enabler for youth participation, because I was just hearing, and I know that in your agenda, Changeability has been the highest on the agenda also because everyone is talking about that and it's a lot of commotion around it. So actually, I did ask ChatGPT how it can really help young people's participation. And what ChatGPT said is here really marked, and quoting ChatGPT, it can help by involving young people, providing them with relevant information and suggestions based on their queries. It can also help young people clarify and narrow down their research and the amount of information needed in the response by asking questions. Okay, so this is what ChatGPT says. Obviously, ChatGPT is not the only tool, and probably many of you are just like me, high geeks in experimenting with technologies. There are several similar tools, what nowadays is called general purpose AI. Midjourney and DALL-E have definitely been out there for a while and gaining more and more momentum. And they are and can be used as creative tools to support new forms of self-expression. And particularly when we talk about young people, this is very important because it means it enables new forms of participation, but also easier ways of expressing themselves. While I am in Dublin, I'm actually working with a very impressive community of practice in the education in the youth sector who are experimenting with these tools. And they have actually gone beyond the use of single tools, but have also started combining them together in order to create more powerful messages and products. So, for example, combining ChatGPT and Midjourney, it can further develop together with these tools. And if you think about youth participation as the opportunity to engage young people in all parts of our society, including youth activists, why not? We can say that these tools are a new breaking opportunity for them to support their voice, as well as the professionals working with them, because it just provides easier um, the new ways of how to create messages, and it is in a way also cheaper and more accessible, and that just makes our lives easier. And it does bridge the gap in resources that many times even young people or professionals had to actually go to specialists working in marketing or other industry. It doesn't mean obviously that these tools will replace those specialists, but just for those who do not have, especially the financial resources, this can be a huge support. Now, I don't want to speak so much about other types of technologies in other fields because I have a feeling you have been talking about them or you will be talking about it. But youth participation is such a wide thing, right? What do we usually understand by youth participation? It's usually the opportunities, the spaces, and means, and where necessary, the support that young people need to participate in all parts of the society. So, of course, civic movements can be one of them, but also participation in education is definitely one important part. There are many tools out there right now, and either they are artificial intelligence per se or other more basic algorithms. Many of them already offer access to tailored content. And it's especially something we have learned in COVID, the importance of having it either synchronous or asynchronous. So that kind of content that you can access whenever you want. So you can be self-taught or just having access to resources that otherwise you would have had only if you're able to be in person in a prestigious university or in a well-paid training course. And of course, the many assistive solutions that have enabled youth participation and accessibility for those with fewer opportunities or physical or visual impairments. And probably the COVID has finally normalized the use of these technologies, and we are definitely grateful to them. I have put here another point on AI and youth services. Young people obviously are in many ways autonomous and can access many tools directly. I think it's also important to always look at what professionals in the field can also use. And again, at least through my research, what we notice is it is again that it was the pandemic who boosted the use of other tools, like the basic chats that you would incorporate, for example, in a hotline. So instead of going fully just for the phone calls, when young people would reach out to you with the need, you'd also have obviously these more optimized tools that would offer support 24/7. And this was specifically focused and more precious for vulnerable groups. And it is always like this, that technology, when is available, is specifically more helpful for those with fewer opportunities or that otherwise are harder to reach in physical spaces. And there is another use that obviously we should never neglect, and that is the power of artificial intelligence to analyze large amounts of data. And in this case, even for us, educators, youth workers, social workers, is highly important because it can also be used to understand what we are doing, what is the impact of our work, what kind of programs we can design better. So this is not just for the large marketing companies or the large technology companies that should use this data, but it's also an opportunity for us to do our job better, to do our programs more relevant for young people. And I did add here some other examples. They are not artificial intelligence. I think we have to have the clear understanding what artificial intelligence is and what artificial intelligence is not, because many pieces of technology, while they can have different parts of algorithms, they are not AI. And with this in mind, I want us to be fully aware when we use the terminology, because otherwise we also promote misunderstanding around this technology. We create additional myths and additional possible challenges in grasping it. And I have put three types of, let's say, technologies or opportunities rather, because I'm pretty sure that some of you at least might have experienced them. Video games is definitely one of them, and one of my colleagues actually has launched a quite extensive publication just during these days on how you can use video games to support youth participation. Whether it's about co-decision, co-creation, and the Minecraft, probably many of you are familiar with it, is one of them. It is a tool that has been used and obviously goes beyond Europe, this practice. Block by Block Foundation is one of the most famous ones. Um, but also during the COVID, we have started many other experimentations on how you can use video game at the end. And the nice part is that obviously in urban planning or planning the design of certain services in community has been one of them, because it just allows you to recreate an entire city, an entire community, and engage young people through the tools that they would anyway use. But this time, you give them a more meaningful purpose. I included here virtual reality. Again, one of these new technologies, not necessarily artificial intelligence, that are exploding. And probably it's not necessarily the most accessible, but again, we see countries such as, for example, Finland and Ireland again, who are experimenting more and more. Entire youth centers are moving in virtual spaces as well. And it's not just about replacing what should happen, and it happens in face-to-face context, but it complements it. And specifically, it gives an opportunity to the young people who, for example, would live in rural areas, or young people who otherwise you wouldn't reach out unless you went in the streets. You do detached or street work in order to identify them. Now it is an opportunity, actually, especially when you combine it with games, to work with them, to reach out to them, and then create new spaces where they can be engaged and specific services can be provided, whether it's related to mental health guidance or personal development, or even professional counseling, finding a job, for example. And I put here the last one, which is not the technology itself, it's the maker spaces. Maker spaces as a methodology is becoming obviously widely popular, even though still very much focused on the use of technology. But it is one of those chances where young people can actually create the technology, can create it for significant aims that are relevant to them or to the communities they live in, which probably deserve even further exploration. Now I have a question. While I will not be able to see your responses, but maybe we can exchange at the end. Are there also challenges that artificial intelligence or algorithms bring to youth participation? Well, based on my own research, we really have to navigate in a way this either-or situation. In the way there are many benefits brought by technology and AI specifically, and there is really a stronger need to increase their meaningful use in education and civic contexts. Nevertheless, we cannot ignore also the downsides or the limitations of that technology, because we have been speaking for quite a while about this so-called shrinking civic space, which to a certain extent is also due to the algorithms, especially those deployed through social media platforms. They really shape the public discourse. They really shape freedom of speech and freedom of association as well. So that is a challenge that we cannot ignore, and we have to be aware when we speak, especially about AI in youth participation. There is also a certain and more proven negative impact on the personal development of children and teenagers. And in the way the algorithms, again, most of the time deployed through the social media platforms, affect their own self-esteem and generate additional mental health challenges, especially for the younger girls. But then I conclude with this, right? This part on the challenges. As educators, with youth or social workers, everyday citizens even, cannot just embrace one of the attitudes. It's not about either we love technology, enthusiastically. It's not a or we fear it or we hate it. It's not an option even. But we do have to embrace it responsibly. So it's not an either or situation. It's not that you love it or hate it. No, it cannot be. It has to be both at some point. And with this, I'm going to how are young people shaping artificial intelligence. Either it's about policies or it's about technology. And I think this is specifically important for a number of reasons. But what would be the first reason? Well, this is really nothing outstanding what I'm saying here. But young people are the generation that is mostly using the internet. It has been like this before the pandemic. It has been the same during the pandemic, regardless the challenges in access to internet, in access to devices. And worldwide, we know that 71% of young people up to 24 use internet on ongoing basis. And especially in developed countries, it goes above 90%. So it's virtually all young people. It's not all young people, but we are so close to that. So that is compared to, about half of the rest of the population. Obviously, these percentages differ from country to country. So at least from this perspective, young people need to be part of that discussion. There are also another thing right here on the yets. Yet, despite young people being such large users of technology, we still see that there are many other parts of society that do shape technology. I think nowadays we see a boom of initiatives that try to develop policies or regulations around artificial intelligence. And there are really countless initiatives at national level. Probably most governments have a discussion around it or initiative around it. There are also many international organizations who try to do something on the topic. Those organizations that are in general very much concerned with human rights, with rule of law, democracy, and everything. I mean, I'm right now doing a research on this, looking on what is happening and what is the role of young people. And what happens actually, while we are all users and beneficiaries of these technologies, most of the stakeholders that are involved in these processes are those who are traditionally working on economy, industry, or technology. There is really no, or if there is some, there is really a marginal role for civil society, youth, or educational stakeholders. And obviously, young people, especially, are the consumers of AI technologies. But we still have to identify that many practices where you'd have an advisory board or consultative board, even without those who develop technologies where young people are involved. For example, before launching a technology. And of course, the list of whys, right? Why is this happening or why young people should be involved is really long. But essentially, we need to speak about youth participation in AI governance because we are already aware of the many limitations of technology and the way it can shape society. So it's beyond the creative and innovative way, but also possible harmful ways. It doesn't matter who is using the technology. It's not just about the individual use. It's also about governments deploying this technology. And unfortunately, research more and more shows that technologies tend to perpetrate certain social biases and historical prejudices. And this combined with sometimes the lack of transparency behind how these technologies are created, used, or deployed, or the insufficient discourse around these topics, because so many times we focus just on the hype, adds to the need of young people as the everyday internet and technology users to be involved. Now, one final question. What can we actually do to ensure an authentic empowerment of young people in the AI-powered world? Because I think now we have examples of what we can do in terms of using technologies, right? So there are a number of technologies that can enable these. There are processes that could enable at least youth participation in AI. But right now, we are still missing some pieces in this big puzzle. Because we do need, first of all, when we speak about young people, to recognize them as legitimate stakeholders when designing youth policies, when designing digital or artificial intelligence policies, or when actually designing the AI technologies. And these have to be done together with them. But there's also more need to put money and resources in investing in this youth as AI catalysts. At the end of the day, whatever technology is out there could be 10 times more useful or more beneficial if it would also be created by young people as well. And it's not just by young people when they become full professionals in the field, but as young citizens, they can also already do that and think of purposeful ways of how they can use technology. And I put here also a reflection for the youth specialists. We cannot speak just about young people because they do not live alone, and usually they are surrounded by all forms of educators and stakeholders. And I think while we have many expectations and we see many opportunities for the young people, equally we can see those for the youth specialists. And I think we really need to focus on providing some ethical guidance on how we choose the AI technologies and how we use them as well. So it's not just because it's cool, or it's not even because it's cool, but it is important to understand that while a certain technology has a potential benefit, might also have a potential harm. And using it for creative purposes, it's one thing, but also using it for other might not be quite beneficial. And we still need to support encouraging technologies, the use of technology in education and youth context. Technology is not just something a specialist needs to use in the way a technology specialist. I still have this research where I discovered that youth organizations or youth specialists still go to the tech person, to the expert in the room in order, to find whatever tool they need. And this has to be a little bit more open and more developed also in terms of competencies for the youth specialists, because probably we do need to have a new curriculum at this moment. And I don't know, from country to country, it might be different, but we do have to have a broad understanding of digital competencies as well, that they can all focus on the knowledge, on the attitudes, on the values, in addition to the technical skills. So building a wider competence around how to use technology and how to understand it. And I put here some specific points that are common regardless who we are, either we speak about young people or about youth specialists, because we do need, and I think this event is doing a great job in that way, to democratize AI from a technical field to a popular culture. It's not just about the technical use, right, we said, but understanding its impact. And we do need to also speak more about this digital critical literacy, which goes beyond the tech skills, the digital citizenship. What does it mean, the digital identity? What does it mean for the rights we have, for the access to the rights we have? And more cooperation with the different sectors. And it's not just us, educators, researchers, or youth specialists being responsible for working with young people, but all of us, decision makers and technology companies being at the same table. I dare say we also have to go beyond being focused on the services, but also, especially educators and youth specialists, being advocates for the use of technology and especially for the responsible use of technology, I have to say. So it's really getting out of our comfort zone. And with this, I think I'm reaching my time limit.
Yeah. Thanks for your great sharing. So let's see if any questions from the audience. And actually, I totally agree with you on the point for the ethical guidelines for using AI. because we did a lot of AI training for the youth and seems it's very powerful for them. But actually, how they can use it properly is it's quite important. So one question from the audience, as many young people are keen on using AI, such as ChatGPT, to solve problems and obtain information, this may lead them to perceive real-life participation as less important. As a youth worker, do you think this issue needs attention, especially the already disengaged youth?
If it needs attention, definitely needs attention. I think this goes exactly in what I was trying to say before. It's one thing to use ChatGPT as a creative tool, right? To create the message, to create content, and that should be encouraged. It's another thing to use such a tool to get access to information. In many ways, this kind of technology is seen, and it's possibly the new internet in that way. The new way of how you have access to information. And right now, there is an acknowledgement that it's not a balanced or a fair way of how that information is filtered, especially through such a tool. And we also have to be aware that the company actually acknowledges this. And they do not say there are no limitations. And I strongly invite you, when you go on the page of, especially now on the OpenAI, the limitations it mentions, we are aware of the many known social biases, limitations, and everything. And that's why we advocate for more user literacy and critical thinking behind it. But sometimes probably, yeah, it's also difficult for us as educators, to take all this responsibility. So yeah, being mindful on how we use it and what you use it for, it's really essential. It's really essential. But it's still not just saying fear ChatGPT, don't use it. Use it, but be aware that you get what you get out of it. It's not the full picture. You still need to do the extra work. It's just like with Wikipedia or any other search result. You cannot trust whatever the first result is there. Critical thinking cannot be replaced by any technology.
Yeah, that's true. So another question is from Kim. So could you share more on social workers' role in this journey of transformation from traditional service to ICT enabled?
Hmm. The youth worker or social worker. During these days, we had an event exactly about this topic. And one of the main problems is that we expect so many things from the youth worker. We expect them to do the grassroots, right? Working directly with young people, and then being on the top of everything and learning everything as fast as possible. Nevertheless, educating themselves is really key nowadays. So it's not just about doing the youth work, it's understanding the society around you at this point. You have to get some technical skills as well. It doesn't mean you have to be an expert, in using all technologies that are out there, all software programs that are out there, but at least you should know where to get the support from. And put in one of the slides, the maker spaces, it would be ideal if in youth work, and not all youth workers would do that, but at least somebody in the team would be open to also have that kind of service integrated. That could be an opportunity for the youth worker to co-design technologies together with young people, and young people see a different way of how technologies are being built.
Yeah, that's great. So see if we have other questions. I saw someone is typing, so maybe wait a bit.
I will add another thing.
Mhm.
When we speak about AI in general, it's also okay not to speak about AI all the time. I said at some point that some technologies are not all AI. So I don't think also we have to replace nowadays everything with AI, anything technology related with AI. But as much as possible, we should understand what are the technologies that are also powered by this. Because actually the essence and probably the reason for which we speak so much about AI, that it has become hidden in many pieces of technologies, one way or another, right? So maybe not the most advanced form of AI, maybe a smaller algorithm, but it's still there until it still has an impact, and it still shapes, the public discourse, the side effects, let's say, come from that. And we cannot ignore this part. So we speak about smart cities, or Internet of Things, or even VR. They're all connected at the end of the day. We just like these buzzwords sometimes, and it's okay to ride the wave. As youth workers, we have to be aware of this. So learning and exposing ourselves to these discussions is equally important. But maybe not all the times they will be called AI. That's my message.
Yeah, that's true. So I think time is running out. So thank you so much for your sharing. And yeah, I really think that it is important to like embrace the technology and also see how we can empower the youth to make use of it, but not just without any limitations. And we can be someone to guide them how to use it more responsible and can have some ethical guidelines on it.
Thank you.